But inspired by our conversation, I went to ChatGPT 5.2, which we'll talk about a little bit later today, and also its new improved image capabilities. And I gave a pretty simple prompt that use your best thinking and list the solutions to build AI agent from simplest to more complex. So that was a super short, super simple, even not according to the best practices of prompting, of course, because you should provide much more information. But I wanted to test the thinking capabilities and the image gen. And what I'm showing here is a spectrum of AI agents, because we have talked a lot about AI agents in this podcast. And like you just said, how different types of agents are still regarded as agents, some for purely personal productivity perspective, other more complex enterprise level, ready to tackle a specific use case, specific task, specific role maybe. So what we are seeing in front of us here is a nine level complexity from a simple off-the-shelf assistance where ChatGPT included Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT Claude General, Google Gemini Workspace, into a complex which is enterprise agent platforms. What are your thoughts on this as almost like a single shot type of prompt, and what does it give you? Is it accurate in terms, if we don't look at some of the typos, there are only 2 typos, or there's one word that I don't recognize at all, which I feel is invented. I don't know if that is English or not, but if we leave these apart and leave these aside. So what are your thoughts on this like spectrum from simple to complex?
Before I say that, I have to comment. There's only 8 of them. The numbering is another typo there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I fell for that. I didn't even count those. 8 is missing. That's right. Yeah. That's good. I didn't pick that up.
I mean, I think this type of spectrum thinking is quite beneficial because it helps show that things aren't black and white. Even though I was speaking just about, personal productivity agents and then the, transformative embedded into your processes types of agentic solutions. The truth is that there are software out there and frameworks out there with which you can be somewhere in between. And it's just about your ambition level to identify that if you are, let's say, on the left-hand side, in the productivity side, do the tools that you are using support you to grow more towards the right-hand side? And that's one thing that organizations should be considering. They shouldn't just be content with the current step, but also looking forward into the next step and what might that require.
Hello, and welcome to the Agent Workforce podcast. This is episode number 24. I am Kristina Auberi. I lead marketing at Digital Workforce, and I'm here with my most amazing co-host, Niko Lehtonen, AI Solution Architect at Digital Workforce. Good to see you, Niko. It's been a few weeks again, and we are entering almost the end of season here. So how are you doing? How are things?
Yeah. I mean, when you look out the window, you wouldn't believe it, but Christmas is literally around the corner now, and things keep on evolving, things keep on progressing, and time keeps on flying. Definitely.
That is so true. We are again at this pretty intense era heading toward Christmas. It reminds me of last year when OpenAI had their Shipmas campaign. They were releasing like 12 new updates and features just before Christmas, and it feels the same every morning, something fairly big coming out from the leading AI labs. So in today's episode, we'll reflect a little bit what has happened this year with AI agents. And of course, we'll talk about OpenAI's new announcements, their ChatGPT 5.2, their new image capabilities, and a report they have quite recently launched, among other topics. But let's kick off with some greetings from AI Finland's event, Niko. I know you were there to provide an introduction to a conversation with the topic agentic AI. Where are we now for real? So anything you want to share from your presentation there?
Yeah, sure. So I think, it's been clear for some time, we've been saying it in the podcast as well, that the market is heavily focusing on these low scale agents that are made for personal use, for team use, and so on. And they're the types of solutions that even wouldn't be made to scale to more than that team. But then there are these other types of solutions where it would really be scalable. Organizations would like to scale them, but don't know how. And this was the topic I was speaking about in the roundtable discussion. What are the types of technical architecture features you're going to need for having these scalable, reliable AI solutions that are agentic, and also a bit about how the process automation world tackles these things so differently from the other type of uh, agentic automation. So about 90% or even 95% are talking about these personal productivity things. And with agents, you can unleash new productivity in your own work, and they're going to do things for you. So that's comparable to Power Platform and those kinds of things that are great and so on, and absolutely have their uses. But if you're looking for those transformative impacts through AI, then you need to look at it from the strategy, from the process perspective, and not from the person's perspective. And that's one thing that's lacking heavily in the message of many of these providers, because it's easier to push these personal productivity tools. But when you look at the results 6 months later, a year later, you might have implemented AI to everywhere in your organization, but it's just on the personal level. It's not embedded into the organization's processes.
Yeah, and both are needed. Let's talk about that in a second as well. But inspired by our conversation, I went to ChatGPT 5.2, which we'll talk about a little bit later today, and also its new improved image capabilities. And I gave a pretty simple prompt that use your best thinking and list the solutions to build AI agent from simplest to more complex. So that was a super short, super simple, even not according to the best practices of prompting, of course, because you should provide much more information. But I wanted to test the thinking capabilities and the image gen. And what I'm showing here is a spectrum of AI agents, because we have talked a lot about AI agents in this podcast. And like you just said, how different types of agents are still regarded as agents, some for purely personal productivity perspective, other more complex enterprise price level, ready to tackle a specific use case, specific task, specific role, maybe. So what we are seeing in front of us here is a nine level complexity from a simple off-the-shelf assistance where ChatGPT included Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT Claude General, Google Gemini Workspace, into a complex, which is enterprise agent platforms. What are your thoughts on this as almost like a single shot type of prompt, and what does it give you? Is it accurate in terms, if we don't look at some of the typos, there are only 2 typos, or there's one word that I don't recognize at all, which I feel is invented. I don't know if that is English or not, but if we leave these apart and leave these aside, so what are your thoughts on this like spectrum from simple to complex?
Before I say that, I have to comment. There's only 8 of them. The numbering is another typo there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I kind of fell for that. I didn't even count those. 8 is
Yeah,
missing. That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
That's good.
But,
I didn't
but yeah,
pick that up.
I mean, I think this type of spectrum thinking is quite beneficial because it helps show that things aren't black and white. Even though I was speaking just about personal productivity agents and then the transformative embedded into your processes types of agentic solutions. The truth is that there are software out there and frameworks out there with which you can be somewhere in between. And it's just about your ambition level to identify that if you are, let's say, on the left-hand side, in the productivity side, do the tools that you are using support you to grow more towards the right-hand side? And that's one thing that organizations should be considering. They shouldn't just be content with the current step, but also looking forward into the next step and what might that require. Maybe they want to start working on some use cases on the right hand side as well, because that's where the big impacts are going to be coming. And out of curiosity, I actually tried the same thing. I did not get as good a result, which is probably something to do with the different type of prompt I was using. However, I did ask for a scoring method, a score table for these technologies that are in this slide, for instance. And there was a big gap from the personal productivity side from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. So the rating went from 1 out of 10 for Copilot, and then 2 out of 10 for Copilot Studio, and so on and so on. Then it jumped from 5 out of 10 to 8 out of 10. So there's a bit of a gap in terms of what these tools can do. So if you're like using, well, let's say N8N, you're going to tackle steps 1 to 5 out of this maybe, but then the absolute right-hand side, at least in its current form, is going to be very hard to do with that type of tool. And it can probably be a part of it. You're going to build it component based anyway, but you're going to need more type of structure in your processes, in your IT architecture, your data engineering, and so on, if you really want to make those transformative projects.
All right, thanks. And that conversation will definitely go on next year when the agentic capabilities evolve. But maybe before we jump into the new updates from ChatGPT, let's spend a moment, because I think it's important for us to also discuss why we have been discussing also these OpenAI announcements and Gemini announcements and these sort of tools for personal productivity. But we feel that organizations should really drive AI forward in two parallel tracks that sort of reinforce each other. So there's the AI agent track, where you will build ambitious agents that automate real processes, reduce knowledge workload, and will become your colleagues. And that's already happening. But also at the same time, you need to develop skills and capability where you raise AI literacy across your workforce. And that comes through everyday tool adoption, like Copilots, Geminis, ChatGPTs, Claude. You understand the prompting basics. You understand the culture of experimentations. You get the big picture of what's happening in the world. So that's why we also refer to some of these reports here and there, which we feel that might bring some value to our listeners. But I think it's super important to drive both these tracks at the same time. So that will actually then, sort of understand what's possible with AI agents, but also building the practical literacy. So that's what we aim to do here. But with that, let's move on to introducing GPT-5.2. OpenAI came out with their new model a few days ago on the 11th of December, following Gemini 3, which made big headlines all over. People were amazed by its ability, and it is a fantastic, strong, very, very good model. But OpenAI came with ChatGPT 5.2, and now people have started using that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. I'll share some of my thoughts in the beginning, but I feel that it sort of challenges me more than the previous models have done. So, and it does think longer in specific tasks. So if I give it a tough business problem or a similar, I can really see that it's spending the thinking mode in particular. So I'm using not the Pro version, which has the best model Pro, like Gemini 3. The best model Pro is available within the Ultra, or if that's called Ultra still, I'm not sure, but the more expensive level tier. But it's also, people say that it's much better at coding than it used to be. But I mean, what I would recommend for people is to have same tests and same prompts to test with each of the new model updates, because it can feel a bit difficult to see the difference. Then otherwise it's much related to how you feel about the use, and it's not really that objective in a way. But if you repeat the same prompt with the different models and new updates, then you can really see the difference. But people do report, I haven't tested this myself, but there's major improvement in creating and working on sheets. And this is something that Claude has, as previously Anthropic's models have nailed this down best so far. But I think OpenAI is now on par with ChatGPT 5.2, but that's still for me to be tested. But personally, I think ChatGPT has been and still is the best in terms of thinking and strategizing and really bringing that type of deep thinking help and sparring partners. So maybe that's just a personal preference, but that's how I feel about that. And before we move on to GDP-VALs, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Have you tried GPT 5.2 yet?
Yeah, I have. I've been using it for this short period of time. It's been out now, and I've been happy with it. I've not used it in the coding agents yet. I can see that it is available. I had to check just now, but yeah, the image generation for me took a long time. I think even tried refreshing, which sometimes works, but it took me like hours to get something done. So I might have hit a busy period, or maybe my Plus subscription just isn't high enough to generate as much stuff. But you know, I think it's good that there's now a credible alternative to Nano Banana as well, because I've really liked that, and now it's good that I have more options on what to use.
Yeah. Actually, we could talk about that right now as well. So before we go to GDP-VAL, because I want to bring that up as a topic as well. But yeah, that's right. So ChatGPT images, the new came out on the 16th of December. So that was a few days after GPT 5.2 came out. And as we have praised Nano Banana in this podcast, so it's a quite good option now that we're getting from OpenAI and ChatGPT, and that's inbuilt in ChatGPT. So whenever you go to create image or ask to create an image, this is the capability that will kick in. And maybe I can show you just one example. Well, the one example that we discussed in the beginning, which was the spectrum of AI agents, was to create it with this new ChatGPT images. But I also, we have been in the process of designing our new offices. So we relocated the office in the beginning of December in Helsinki, and we have a beautiful new office, but it still needs a little bit of branding, and we wanted to like settle in first and then decide the right places for branding. And I can just show you what I created with both Gemini and then with ChatGPT images. So I can, this is an image of from the office, the doorway you enter the office, and it's just a glass door, and it's definitely needing some sort of a brand image there. So I just gave a simple prompt. This is Gemini's Nano Banana, and turn this into a modern tech company office entry with e.g. light signage for logo. And it is giving me like this, it comes up with a company name called Aurora Innovations, and it gives a signage with there's light and some sort of a light signage screens maybe there as well. And it also brings some new furniture into the picture. And then I give, hey, this is the logo we should use. And I give you some instructions, keep curtain as it is and use this logo. And then it gives me 3 additional like mock-ups, and where in all of those, the logo is just, it's not correct at all. But just for reference, I did exactly the same prompt with ChatGPT 5.2 and with the new image capability inbuilt. So exactly same picture of the entry of the glass doors, of turn this into a modern tech company office entry, blah, blah, blah. Then it comes up with pretty much similar thinking. So it places the light sign on top. But I like on the right-hand side, I like this like portrait screen, which looks pretty nice. So that was a good idea. It also invented new things like furniture and things in the left-hand side. And then I gave the same prompt that, hey, use this is the logo you should use, and keep the curtain as it is in the original photo. And then it didn't follow my orders either. So it's not the correct logo. So yeah, I kept on with the conversation. But this is the same example with both these models. I don't know. I sort of feel in this case maybe ChatGPT got it better, but still it's pretty close. Yeah.
Our logo became a cyclops.
Yeah, no, it's not. That's so that's where we can see that it's definitely not 100% there yet. But I think it gives a lot of good ideas that we could possibly explore with that
Mhm.
design. Yeah, but hey, with GPT 5.2, there's also talk about like GDP-VAL, and that's something we discussed in episode number 19. So GDP-VAL was introduced in September 25th by OpenAI, and it was the so instead of these benchmarks that like measure IQ, so it measured the effectiveness of these AI tools in real world tasks. So in tasks that make a difference in terms of cross domestic products. So they had identified 9 industries and actually 44 occupations from 9 top industries that contribute most to the US GDP, gross domestic product. And within that set, they had 1,320 specialized tasks that they were like measuring with the different Gen AI models out there. So how well these models perform in these real world tasks. But now with this 5.2, this thinking sets sort of a new state of the art score according to OpenAI, and it's their first model that performs at or above human expert level. And specifically, 5.2 thinking beats or ties top industry professionals on 70.9% of comparisons on GDP-VAL knowledge work tasks, according to human judges. So there's been like a big leap upwards. So these tasks include making presentations, doing spreadsheets, other artifacts. And I think in episode 19, we shared an example of a video producer producing like a case of a new video production, new project into this sort of a calendar view with all the tasks. And this sort of task, you can go and read these GDP vals was included. But I think this is a new way of like measuring the value of these models coming out, and they are saying that in GDP val tasks, it's doing like 11 times the speed and less than 1% of cost of expert professionals. So that's pretty strong statement. But yeah, something to keep an eye here maybe, and remember these GDP vals and go check this out yourself.
Yeah, another metric that I checked out because of this and the new Gemini 3 Flash is the AA Omniscience Index. AA comes from Artificial Analysis, who is the party that independently conducted this research and this testing. But on their list, it shows that GPT 5.1 high has a better success in content than GPT 5.2 high. It's not a big difference, but according to this, there is a bit of a difference. But what's interesting is that Gemini 3 Flash jumps straight into number 1 on this. So this Omniscience index metric checks the level of hallucinations. The higher the number, the fewer hallucinations. So GPT 5.1, 5.2 are close to each other, but Gemini 3 Flash is way above them. Haven't tried it yet, so hard to say, but it's the same rating as Gemini 3 Pro high. So that'll be interesting to see how much that matters for the users.
Yeah.
Noticeable it actually is.
That's true, and tough to say. I mean, how they really calculate this in the release notes of GPT 5.2. I've still scrolled down a bit, so they're also like measuring hallucinations, and according to their own data, OpenAI is stating that 5.2 is hallucinating less. So it's 6.2 5.2 thinking model compared to 5.1 thinking, which is 8.8%, and that's like a 30% less common hallucinations. So that's actually on the contrary to that particular study that you brought up. But I mean, I have to say, all in all, there has been a noticeable difference in 2025 what comes to hallucinations, according to my experience at least. So it's not that often. Of course, that's still in, and you see that and you spot that, but it's getting like less and less, I'd say. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there was another AI Finland event yesterday, and I was there. I was chatting to some people, and hallucinations is still being brought up quite a lot. And I think that's one of the things that is also indicative of people using the copilots, ChatGPTs for their work and so on, because the types of solutions where if you don't get it right, you try again, and therefore the pressure for the accuracy to be always as high as possible is lower, because the companies building these, the people building these agents for themselves and so on, they recognize that it doesn't have to work every single time. They can always retry if it doesn't do something. So getting something okay 8 times out of 10 is good enough. But of course, when you look at these, when you go into the process automation side, more comparable to unattended RPA, where you have to get things right because it's not being monitored by a human in every single step. You have to build it in a very different way so that you don't have to be retrying as much and so on. Because otherwise, you're going to be burning a lot of tokens because the amount of data being handled by these solutions is way higher than these low scale agents. So I would say that all the discussion about hallucinations on a business context, at least level, will be diminishing when companies start moving into that direction on the spectrum. But as long as we're talking on the copilot level, then these things are going to be discussed. I don't think it's avoidable.
No. Okay, finally, let's move on to something OpenAI released earlier in December on the 8th. And this is a report, I guess, on the state of enterprise AI. So we know that ChatGPT is serving over 800 million active weekly users. And maybe there's a bit of like market dividing happening that Anthropic is regarded as the enterprise product and OpenAI is the consumer product, and then Google is probably both and. But it's good to keep in mind that OpenAI, they have a strong base also in the enterprise, and they probably to tackle that image and to fight back in terms of who's winning on the enterprise. They have released out this pretty extensive report what comes to the use of ChatGPT in enterprise AI setting, the state of the enterprise AI report. And they have surveyed 9,000 workers across 100 enterprises and documenting their patterns of AI adoption. And this is real-world usage data from enterprise customers of OpenAI. And maybe let's dive into this report a little bit. So there are some points that are maybe valuable for us bringing into our listeners, and they can then dive deeper into the report. But maybe, do you want to start and I can then comment in, or how do we want to run this?
Yeah. I've got a couple of comments that I had based on the article or the paper. One thing was that it says that 75% of users report being able to complete new tasks they previously could not perform. And I think that's something that's sort of obvious because it's not a search engine, but it does, for instance, explain things to you in ways that you wouldn't have been able to get that information in previously. Like I've used it for some topics where I've known about it, but it's not work related and it's just not been something that I've ever spent time with. So I've been asking for ChatGPT to please explain this topic to me. And then, I understand the connection with other things. Then I ask it to go deeper into certain subjects within that topic and so on. And it's really helped a lot to get an understanding in the way that is easy to process for myself. So, of course, you need to know a bit about what do you want to know and how do you want things to be explained to you. Like if there's a lot of terminology, for instance, you might want to ask to also write a glossary or explain the terminology. There might be lots of abbreviations that are not explained and so on. So yeah, I am one of the 75%. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I recall that point as well, and I think it's important one. So I don't remember exact numbers. We can scroll this and try to find that for you. But basically, what it says that the, for instance, tech-related inquiries from non-tech people who are like heavy users of AI have increased substantially, and it's good to notice how this is actually extending your skills and capabilities and exactly the learning, like you said. So us non-techies can use the powers of ChatGPT into creating something more technical, maybe, I don't know, a mock-up or a vibe coded front end look and feel or whatever. And then maybe some people who are not that traditionally haven't been that strong in like writing skills have got like entirely amazing skills with ChatGPT writing. So there's definitely this stuff of cross skilling that you can get from the report. So yeah, there are some numbers behind this, but I just can't recall those exactly now. But something maybe, yeah, and I mean, all in all, these are impressive how the growth has progressed and how much more people are using and how much more messages people are sending, and also how they define this like heavy users, or what was the name they used in this? It was like
Frontier team.
intensive user, frontier users. So if you are pardoned in the 95th percentile of adoption intensity, what comes to message volumes, which is you're generating more than 6 times more messages than the medium worker, and you're using the use data analysis tool 16 times more than the medium worker in ChatGPT, coding 17 times more coding related messages as the medium worker, and also regards to other tasks like writing, communications 11 times more, analysis calculations 10 times more, how to and procedural guidance 9 times more, information gathering 9 times more, and so forth. And yeah, that's quite interesting. But I've been a huge fan of custom GPTs for a long time, since those were introduced within ChatGPT, and I find those extremely valuable. And now, particularly, you can choose the model that you use with your custom GPT, and those give tremendous value. But also, according to this report, yeah, the year-to-date increase in weekly users of custom GPTs and also projects, well, that hasn't been around for full year, I guess, but that has been increased by 19 times. And then like 20% of all enterprise messages were processed via custom GPT or a project. So 1/5 of all enterprise messages were processed via custom GPT or project. So yeah, if you haven't done so yet, I really recommend using custom GPTs. Those are extremely valuable tools.
One thing I didn't see in this report is it didn't mention if this is purely on through OpenAI's website and API use, or is this also if you're using a GPT from Microsoft, which would also mean Copilot nowadays. But similarly, it would be interesting to get a similar report from Microsoft. For instance, when Copilot was upgraded with GPT-5, how much has the experience improved? How much more are people using it now? Like you could just compare half one to half two. That would already be
Yeah,
a simple one.
yeah,
And because it would be really interesting to see those numbers as well. Because I reckon they are so different from one
yeah.
another.
I agree. Yeah, let's hope that such a report comes out. And yeah, we need to talk about Copilot in some future episode. It has its strong use cases as well, for sure, now with these better capabilities inbuilt as of today. But yeah, there's so many points to bring up from this report, but we can definitely, on average, ChatGPT Enterprise users attribute 40 to 60 minutes of time saved per active day to their use of AI, with data science, engineering, communications workers saving more than average, which is 60 to 80 minutes per day. So these are big time savings. So I think there's a lot of proof now that people are getting value out of these tools in their work context as well. And maybe, I think, if I can find it quickly. So yeah, not a surprise, but in absolute terms, ChatGPT enterprise customers and fastest growing sectors, technology, which is year-to-year customer growth as 11 times bigger, healthcare 8x, and manufacturing 7x. So yeah, we of course representing technology here, I guess. But anything else you want to bring up from this report, Nico?
That's pretty much it. But one thing I was wondering with the frontier firms and frontier users, the amounts of messages that they put in probably also is because they are using it more for iterative work. So it's not just that you put a prompt in and you take it as you get it. Instead, you want to polish it, you want to take the outcome further, and so on. So I'm sure they use it more for more purposes, but also they are using for a single need more prompts.
Yeah. And the tool, I think the tool use and of course they really benefiting from the different features and inbuilt functionality. So that was of course more broad in the frontier workers compared to medium workers. But yeah. But that's for the report, and I guess that's all for this year's episodes as well. So we are wrapping up 2025 and look forward to speaking with you all again next year. And I guess it's happy holidays from our side at this point. And thanks for listening. And yeah, have a great
Yeah.
holiday
I mean,
break.
yeah. My final comment is I promised to talk more about anti-gravity, but
You
I
did.
couldn't. Yeah.
That's for
Good.
next year.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Happy
Thanks
holidays.
all. Yeah, happy holidays. Thank you.